Hello and welcome back to Hardworking Man. Today I'm going to do a real quick oil change on the bad boy Rogue that we picked up from Outdoor Equipment Company. We love this thing, but there's something we're adding to it that I'm pretty excited about. After our last video when we were doing leaf cleanup and our DR lawn and leaf vac broke, we used the Yakta and that thing was fast and they're so powerful. We just mowed the leaves into a circle and a bunch of people said, why don't you mulch the leaves? So after I get done with this oil change, we're going to add something to the bad boy that should maybe make it so we never have to rake again. We're going to find out if it works, so you're not going to want to miss it. Let's get this oil change done. I'll touch on a few key things you want to look out for, and then we're going to add the new item and try to take care of some leaves. Now, I've showed you this before, the little high drain blower. I use this all the time. So before I work on this oil filter area or anything, I'm just going to use it and just blow out in there, because the less chance you have for contamination when you remove and replace an oil filter, an oil cap, an oil fill, the better. So just handy, don't need an air compressor, quick and easy. Now we're going to take this. They got a drain tube on this. I just used 2 crescent wrenches and got that loose. And then you just pull off the cap with an oil pan underneath and make sure you don't drop it in the oil. Position that to drain. I mean, this oil's pretty clean, but you want to do your first oil change at 8 hours, I believe, which is what we're at. Take that cap out so it drains quicker. Once that finishes draining, we're going to take the oil filter off. I'll show you something you always want to check. I showed it in the Yakta oil change video, and actually at the Paul Bunyan show, somebody was like, oh my gosh, I just did an oil change and it was a catastrophic failure, and I'll tell you what they did and what they missed. So before you drain your oil, get your engine to temp, because you want that more fluid to all drain out. I got a Kawasaki engine. Don't skimp. Use the Kawasaki filters, the Kawasaki engine oil. Why would you do anything else? You got a premium engine, put premium stuff in it. Don't try to save a few bucks on your oil. Trust me, it's worth it. This stuff's specially formulated for the 4-stroke engines. It's got more zinc in it. It's just a lot better for these engines, and the manufacturers know what their engines need, and this is it. All right, now that all the oil is drained, we're going to take the oil filter off. And one thing I've heard about some of the bad boy mowers is after you do an oil change, people think they have an oil leak. And what happens is when you take the filter off, it gets on the engine mounting plate, and some of it can get underneath the engine, and then it slowly comes out over time. So it's not a leak, it's the oil that got under the engine. There is a cutout here that most of the oil should go through, I'm hoping, but to try to prevent too much of it from getting under the engine, which could be addressed because this is a 2024 Rogue, and I know they've addressed some of the complaints people had over the years, like the heat shield on this between the muffler and this plate so it doesn't get too hot, etc. But I'm going to take a rag and put it down here so that way if any oil spills, it gets on the rag and doesn't seep under the engine. So there's the hole that's under where the oil filter is. Let me get my oil pan readjusted under there. And now take this filter off. I had to use a wrench to loosen it. Some people crank those things on and I don't know why. And most of it's going right through that hole. Just a very little bit hit the edge of it. So it appears that with a lot of the things, Bad Boy addressed that complaint that people had, which is nice when the manufacturers listen to the consumers. So a little bit there, there's actually a little ledge underneath the oil filter also that catches that oil and directs it away from the engine. So that shouldn't be an issue here, especially the way we did it. The rag caught just a little bit of oil, but nothing I'd even be concerned with. Now, what I was going to tell you, you have to make sure, and if you don't, you can blow up your engine like one of our subscribers did. When you take an oil filter off, whether it be a vehicle, a lawnmower, anything, there's an O-ring on here. You need to make sure this O-ring stays with the oil filter, because sometimes it'll stick to the engine, and if this O-ring is stuck to the engine and you put your new filter on, which has an O-ring on it also, it's not going to seal. It may seal initially, but eventually it's going to leak. No oil in your engine equals goodbye engine. So make sure this seal, this O-ring, is not stuck to the engine before you put your new oil filter on. Now another thing you want to do is just get a little bit of your old oil and just get oil on this O-ring. Now we're going to replace this. Spin it on. You do not have to crank these on. You just nice and hand tight. You don't have to really reef on it. That seal's going to seal, and then the next guy can actually get it off. So you can see here, The rag down there caught a little bit of oil, nothing crazy. Now we're going to replace the drain cap. I'm actually going to tie this up just in case that cap comes off so that my oil doesn't drain unknowingly. I like that. That was on the Yakta. They had theirs going up. It's just an extra, I guess, safety precaution. So I'll grab a zip tie after that cap's back on and point that up just to be safe. Now the old oil's drained, the cap's back on, the new filter's on. Now 2 quarts of oil in. And I showed this in another video. Like when I used to pour oil when I was younger, I'd pour it like this because it seems to make sense, but you actually want to pour it this way. Start out sideways and then work so you're pouring this way because it lets the air in and it doesn't give you the glug glug where you're going to spill all over. Where when you do it the other way that I thought made sense when I was younger, it traps air in it, gives you the glug glug and the oil spills. So here I just took a big zip tie and hooked it to the wire loom here and then zip tied that zip tie to the oil drain line just so it's angled up instead of laying down just in case this cap comes off, which I don't think it will, but better safe than sorry. All right, the oil change is done. We're gonna fire it up, make sure there's no leaks and check our levels. But after our last video when we were mowing all the leaves up with the Yakta and a bunch of comments said you guys should mulch your leaves. I got a hold of Matt at Outdoor Equipment Company in Ray, Michigan. I had remembered Matt said something when we bought the Rogue from him about a system they had that helps mulch leaves, and he's like, absolutely, I got what you need. Let me show you what it is. So Matt was like, you need the ACS. It's the Advanced Chute System, and it's supposed to install in minutes and make mulching leaves so much easier. So we're gonna throw this on and see how well it works, if at all. So these chutes can be used on different brand mowers. It's made by Bad Boy for the Bad Boy, so it's a more streamlined, I guess, installation. The first thing you do, 9/16 wrench, take this chute off. All right, so now with that chute gone, we're gonna place the base plate on here. They give you some longer bolts to go through this deck. So we bolted it down, but it's loose right now because you want this, I guess, this blocker plate tight against your deck. So with it tight and this here, I'm gonna tighten this up. You put a bolt with these plastic washers in between the chute and the mounting bracket, so that way it can pivot freely. So now with this tight against there and these bolts tightened up, we tighten up these mounting bolts. So now that's where it should sit. Now we're gonna attach this handle. So now we've got this tight, it's tight mounted to the deck. We tightened up this handle on here, and then you put this bolt through. There's 2 different settings depending on where you want that handle at. Now you take your spring and you hook it to the back plate, and then you need something to pull it with. So I got this safety wire here, and I am going to wrap it around a wrench so I have a handle, I guess you could say. And then you want to pull that spring and slide that bolt through it. Get the nut on there so it can't slip off, and then we'll pull our wire out. Tighten that up and we should be good to go. All right, that was fairly simple. The video was more helpful than the instructions, and hopefully this video shows you all the basic steps of it. But now you can lift this up when you want full discharge, or if you want to mulch leaves, or say you're by a house or some windows, you can close it so that you're not shooting stuff out the side. I've always sort of wanted one of these, but I didn't realize it was so great for mulching leaves, or they say it's so great for mulching leaves, so we're about to test it because I mentioned in other mowing videos when I'm around Rachel's flower gardens and I spray grass into there, she's not real happy with me. So now I can just flip this shut and not have to worry about it. Let's fire it up, check the oil, and go see how this thing does on leaves. After every oil change, you want to fire it up for a minute, make sure you have no leaks, then shut it down and check your oil. Full clean and ready to go. So here when you're mowing, This is easy to grab and flip up and down. And it's got that second adjustment if you wanted the handle further away, which we don't. We've got it in the closer setting and it's nice and easy to reach. So let's flip it down and just see what happens. So it holds quite a few leaves under there, you can see as I open it. All right, as you can see, this isn't a clean job. The leaves do fly, they're light, they're dry, but it mulches them up nicely. It doesn't leave you with a pristine, clean yard, but I imagine once you hit this once or twice, it's gonna just all, I guess, blend in with the grass, and that's the idea of it, is to fertilize your grass, more organic matter, instead of piling them up and burning them. Dang, park your brake! All right, so I hit this area, just went over it another time, and I have to say, I think I'll be selling that DR lawn and leaf vac once I get it fixed, because this is so much faster, so much easier, and so much more fun. I'll wear safety glasses and a dust mask next time if there's a lot of leaves like this, but I mean, there's still leaves in the driveway. I'll need a blower. It's not a one and done thing. But you saw what this area looked like before we started. I say, now that I've hit it 2 times, that's a huge win, and it's gonna help the yard be healthier. Like, you know, we're trying to get our yard in better shape. And over here, I mean, there were a ton of leaves built up by these IBC totes. And you can see there's still some along the side of the truck and the trailer, but I mean, it mulched these up beautifully. And they'll just turn into fertilizer or organic material for the yard. Is it a viable solution? I think absolutely. And if you stay on your yard and you mow it as the leaves fall, and with this bad boy or the Yakta, these mowers are so fast, it doesn't take any time at all. You're not gonna have the buildup of leaves like we're starting with right now. So if you think this is a good option, let me know in the comments. If you think it's a waste, let me know. I don't think it is. I'm glad we have it. I think it's a great addition to the Bad Boy Rogue. Thank you, Matt from Outdoor Equipment Company in Ray, Michigan. Thanks for watching Hardworking Man, guys, and have a great day.